I was on the Gold Coast on the weekend.
Calling the game for
Calling
Fox?
the game.
Front row seat?
Front row seats for the Brisbane Broncos.
Mm.
This is how it all unfolds. They come off that performance against the Bulldogs a week before at home. They still have a hope. They go down to the Gold Coast. They walk out onto the pitch, having a look at their body language. They're up and about. Reece Walsh walks out with no shirt on. So you're thinking, boy, he's pretty confident about the way they're going and what he's going to come up with. They come out onto the field.
Hang on. What? No shirt? Oh, in the warm-up.
In the warm-up, yeah. So just park that thought for a moment.
Okay.
They come out and into the game. Reece Walsh scores 2 really brilliant solo tries.
Yeah.
12-0 up, Brisbane Broncos.
Here we
Everything's
go.
going okay. I think,
Yeah.
here we go. Like it's going to happen. It's happening. 12-0 up. The Gold Coast Titans muster up and find a way to get back into the game. Broncos score another one, 18 points to 10 at halftime. Just before halftime, Keanu Kinney gets 10 in the bin. So 18 points to 10 up. Keanu Kinney 10 in the bin. And then 36 unanswered points in the second half in the way of the Gold Coast Titans. Take nothing away from the Gold Coast Titans. Keanu Kinney was absolutely electric, outstanding for Feeder, Jojo and David. Jojo more so. I thought he was terrific, played his greatest game for a Titan. They were great. 36 unanswered points. It was 18 points to 10 at halftime. They had a man in the bin. Season's on the line. They lose the game. 46 points to 18.
Season was on the line for the Titans as well.
Season was on the line for the Titans as well. 46 points to 18. Now, I've spent most part of the weekend just trying to get my head around where the Broncos are at as a playing group. More importantly, where they're at as a club. And I've come up to this. I was pretty strong last week in regards to I feel as though that the Broncos have missed some standards. I feel as though they are not prepared to pay the same price that they paid last year. They're not prepared to pay the same sacrifices, and we're seeing the results of that. One thing I'm a big believer in, Ben, is you get what you deserve in rugby league. As harsh as that may sound, you get what you deserve. And are we seeing what the Broncos deserve? Take nothing away from what happened last year. Absolutely, and I've delved into that. Round 1 performance was a defining game for me last year for the Broncos, built on grit and trust and determination and defensive resolve, and they built their season from that, so much so they go on to play in the grand final. This season, Ben, they just quite simply are not prepared to pay the same price. Now, so you go, well, how do we fix it? Where does it come from? Take the head coach in any organisation. The buck starts and the buck stops with the head coach. Throw the board in, throw the football managers in, the whole unit all encompass what is unfolding at the Brisbane Broncos. As it stands right now, the Broncos have played in 3 finals games in 4 seasons. 3 finals games in 4 seasons. That's not me. That's fact. That's reality.
Yeah, it's counting, yeah.
That's where it's at.
Yeah.
Accountability needs to be held at the Brisbane Broncos, from coach to player to management to board, right across the organisation.
What about the players, though, Coles? I mean, the coaches, they're not the ones missing the tackles. They're not the ones
No, they're not.
executing.
It's a great point, and it's a point you hear all the time. They're not the ones missing the tackles. They're not the ones doing this. But I tell you what they do, Ben, is from Monday to Friday, right through from October to February, when they are in the trenches and they're in the off-season, in the pre-season, they instill a standard. Now, people talk about culture, all this buzzword you hear in rugby league. Culture, to me, is the standard you're not willing to walk past. Are they walking past standards that they didn't walk past last year? I would say yes. And you start to sift through it because you have to. There has to be an overhaul. There has to be a review done on the Brisbane Broncos when you start to sift through their performances, their some of the decisions that have been made, some of the efforts and some of the things that have happened collectively throughout the course of the year. There'll be a big change. There'll be a change in those standards. There has to be. There has to be, Ben. 18 points to 10 up.
Mm.
In a game you have to win. Beaten 36 blot in the second half.
Kevy, head coach, has to take responsibility because you're right, the buck stops with him. But has he got the right team around him?
He had, yeah.
Okay, John Cartwright, we're not questioning him. Lee Breers, I don't know enough about him, but he was there. These were the guys last year that got to the grand final. They are both now out the door. We know Carty's taking up a bit. Well, actually, they're both heading to the UK. So have they already got are they already out the door? Have they got their mind elsewhere? Is that a factor?
I'm not sure. I haven't been within the four walls. So we're trying to come up with...
Could that be a factor?
It absolutely could be a factor. I mean, if you look at it, you go through the origin period, for example, and we've touched on this before.
Cartwright not
there.
Ballon,
not there.
Yeah.
Ballon was not there.
Players.
The
support staff.
Physio, players, support staff. There was about 5 coaches that weren't there through that period. Whose fault is that? Is it okay that they go and do it? It absolutely is a disruption. Should it determine where you finish at the end of the season? Probably not. But it is a disruption. It is. So,
sorry to cut you off there. Can teams, because the Broncos have had this issue in the past.
Yeah, but not that many staff members involved in an Origin series.
Does a team or a club with a good enough setup to cover that?
I don't think a team or a club gives that many staff members away. Like Frank Panisi is a football manager of the Melbourne Storm. He was involved with the Blues. Yeah. That's one. The Broncos had at least 4 to somewhat 5 of, physios and doctors and et cetera. Okay?
Wow.
So it's a disruption. Football clubs today aren't football clubs that they used to be. And what I mean by that is the Brisbane Broncos were built on the DNA of success and hard work, and it was instilled, and Wayne Bennett was at the helm there for a long period of time. One thing Wayne Bennett did, and I've been coached by more technical, better coaches, Wayne Bennett held you accountable for everything you did, and he dealt with some enormous egos. We're talking egos and personalities. Wendell Sailors, Lottie Takiri, Sean Berrigans, Justin Hodges, Carmichael Hunts, myself. There's a lot. There's a heap. Darren Lockyer, Shane Webke, Gordon Tallis, Brad Thorne. There's a heap. The list goes on. Alfie.
And all different personalities.
All very different. But one thing he did is he held you accountable. So much so, I'll tell you a little story. Brent Tate, one of my best mates, he made the Australian side. This is Wayne Bennett. Brent Tate made the Australian side. He'd played 16 first-grade games at that point in time. Wayne told Tatey he made the Australian side like this. He said, "Congratulations, Tatey, on the Australian team. It's only 4 people's opinion." That was Wayne saying to Tatey, "Well done, but guess what? Don't get too ahead of yourself."
Nice.
And he had this great ability to have and hold you accountable. Are these players today being held accountable? Is the coach and the coaching staff and the football department being held accountable? Who do they get held accountable by? The board. Who looks after the board? There has to be an overview or a review done on what is going on there at the Broncos. Has to be. And it's nothing against. This is not a beat up at all on Kevin Walters. We all love Kevy. You could put anyone in that position. Wayne Bennett, Seabold was there, Ivan Henjak was there, Anthony Griffin was there.
Yeah.
If they were sitting in the same position, the noise would be as loud, if not louder.
13 13 55 0467 736 736. Texts coming in fast and furious. The Alltel open line is there for you. It can be a helpline today too. Get it off your chest. Broncos fans, what would you change? What is the fix? Because we know player rosters are the hardest thing to change. That's not changing overnight. There will be new assistants there, as in assistant coaches. We're getting a lot of texts, as we did last week. Ben Ikin not being there. The overseer, whatever that position may be. Do you need a strong footballing mind, someone, a director of football, whatever it may be, and who may that be, to come in and be that conduit, if you like, or even have a position over Kevy?
Well, you have a look. You have a look at some, like, people in power need to have a strong and differing opinion at different points of time. That's just how it works.
You can't be surrounded by yes men.
You can't be surrounded by yes men.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at the Melbourne Storm. Frank Panisi, regarded as the best football manager in the game, has been for a long period of time. Where does Melbourne sit consistently? Along with the coach, great coach. They sit consistently up at the top echelon of teams. Matt Cameron at the Penrith Panthers, football manager, along with Ivan, sit consistently up at the top. The Roosters obviously have their similar scenario. Now, you need to have people that are challenging you. You need to have people alongside you that, A, are very good at what they do, but B, can challenge you by a differing opinion. If you have continual yes men, people around you that make you feel warm and fuzzy, and I've had a lot of people in my circle in life, etc., that I can ask a question to, and I know 100%. I might not like what they're going to say, but I'm going to ask it anyway. They're the people that when the chips are down or you're facing a little bit of adversity, Ben, that will get you through the other side.
Warm and fuzzy is like a blanket on a winter's night that helps you go to sleep, and that's the last thing you absolutely want. Text coming through, as I said, Cozza, outstanding stuff. Damer, I mentioned it last week. Other listeners did too. Icon getting the sack is where it all started to set in. Hi, boys. My question for Corey. There is a lot of noise about Mitchell Moses leaving Parramatta and St George Keane. Is there a chance that the Roosters let Sam Walker go to the Broncos and sign Mitchell Moses long-term deal? Wow, there's a bit of a roundabout. JJ, thank you for that text.
Look, I don't think, and I could be completely wrong, but I don't think the Roosters are going to let somebody like Sam Walker go. I mean, I know Sam obviously loves the club. Roosters generally don't lose somebody that they want to keep. That's sort of the normal rule of thumb. The Broncos actually tried to get Mitchell Moses a number of years ago. That didn't work out. But again, I don't see Mitchell Moses moving to somebody like the Roosters. However, it is the game of rugby league. We've seen stranger things.
All right, the Alltel Open Line, as I said, it can be the helpline today. You can get it off your chest, Broncos fans. You're wondering what the hell happened on Saturday afternoon. We'll run the rule over that. It is the Monday means test. But also, what do you do to fix the Broncos? If you were in charge, what would you do? 20 minutes past 9. From you, can we fix it? 13 13 55 0467 736 736. Broncos fans, and look, even if you're not a Broncos fan, but a rugby league fan, you need the Brisbane Broncos. We need the Brisbane Broncos to be competitive and to be firing. They are the biggest rugby league club on the planet. $75 million turnover. They are making money. They are a powerhouse, but they are not winning. So what is the fix? 13 13 55 0467 736 736. If you were in charge, and it could be a coaching level, it could be at a board level, what would you do? Corey, let's run the rule over Saturday afternoon. You said 12-0 up, everything's flying, but then it wasn't. I'm having a look at the two Titans tries that got them back into...
The two in the first half.
The two in the first half, because there were 7 in the second half. The two in the first half, and Kinney was untouchable.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, let me rephrase that. He was touched, but they're playing NRL, not playing touch footy. Slipping off tackles, that left edge. Tackling at that level is just not there, and it has not been there for the Broncos.
Yeah, well, again, I go back to last year. The season was built on defence and desire and grit and, all that stuff. And they just haven't been able to stay in the fight for long enough periods of time this year. The resilience of the Broncos' defensive line hasn't been there where it needs to be. So there has to be a reason why. So you go back to why. Is the training standards the same? Are they as high? Have they walked past some habits? Are they allowing things at training like they didn't do last year? It doesn't just happen. Yes, defence is mindset and it's attitude, but also there's a system to it. Are they putting enough emphasis on their defence? Because on the weekend, the Broncos, they were completing it around 84%, so they weren't under the pump in terms of, dropping heaps of ball and handing it over and doing a lot of more defence, etc.
You were there watching it ball by ball, second by second. There has been criticism of their fitness. And the reason I'm going here is those two tries that Kinney set up, Broncos are still up 18-10 at halftime. They have a man in the bin, the Titans, so the Broncos are playing with a man up. But it was a really interesting point that Justin Horro, and I heard him talk about this on NRL Crunch Time yesterday, he said at halftime, he sent a text to his mates, the footy chat, saying, boys, Broncos up 18-10, they are cooked, they are done. And his mates come back and said, what are you talking about? You're having a laugh. He said, look at the body language. That body language, one, did you notice it? But also, how, when you're 18-10 up and have a man up, can you be walking off with body language that says, we're shot here?
Yeah, you can read a little bit into body language, more so in the moment, not suppose. And I guess experience has taught me about body language. When you're in the moment, you can sense it and read it. Half time, a little bit different because there's actually nothing happening. Now, I'm not discrediting what Horro said, but the fact that they walked off and their heads were down, etc., it's not great in itself because they were leading the game 18 points to 10, so they should have been upbeat and buzzed and the like. But
was it the way those tries were scored, perhaps? Because last week they were flat. Kevy said, we were flat.
Well, that's an alarming thing to say in itself. The fact that they went into the Broncos game, we touched on that they were flat.
Yeah, the Bulldogs game, they were flat.
How can you be flat at Suncorp?
So you said confidence. Reece Walsh is strutting around without his shirt on before the game in warm-up. He comes out and scores two of the greatest shots. Their confidence should have been flying. Yet they've had two quick tries put on them. And their confidence, it's like a balloon's been popped.
So at the moment and through this season, the Broncos are going to be the hunted because they played in the grand final. They got this great roster and they got this great ability to score points. But also there was this undertone from other teams, and I got no doubt that if coming with a game plan, if you can stick it to the Broncos and you stay with them and you go after them and you keep them in the cycle, we'll come out the other end. That was the trend. That was the theme. That was what would have been said and has been said, having spoken to some coaches in the game, about the Broncos. Just hang with them and we'll get our opportunities. So much so we'll run over the top of them. 18 points to 10. Season on the line. 36 points in the second half.
Run over the top
so
of them.
What happens?
Is that a fitness thing?
Well, they're all fit. Everyone is fit. Everyone in the comp is fit. There's training. So fitness comes back to how long you can. So the skill you can execute under pressure for long periods of time isn't a fluke. It's trained at in scenario-based training. I've been there myself. I've witnessed it. I've been part of it. And you see Melbourne Storm, and I keep banging on about Melbourne and also the Penrith Panthers because I know that their training standard and their intensity at training is done for long periods of time. So when it comes to a game, they can execute that. Which is what I'm going back to, Ben. The standards, are they the same as they were last year? Are we accepting the same things? Are we not? Are we holding people accountable? Is there individuals being pulled up for minor defects in what should be pulled up in?
13 13 55 0467 736 736. This one's from Jace at the Gap, Cos. He said, the first thing I do is get the Melbourne Storm on the phone and broker a deal for Christian Welch. We need some Storm DNA in the form of an experienced forward to instill work ethic, professionalism into a failing Broncos culture. Jace, thank you for the text. Well, that's what they're missing, right?
What?
Everyone's Capewell and that work ethic and that culture and what he brings.
Corey Jensen,
yep,
works hard.
Yeah, he does.
Pat Carrigan, works hard.
Yeah.
Payne Haas, works hard. Xavier Willison on the up. Does long minutes, works hard.
There's 4 of 17.
Yeah, I mean, look, Christian Welch has been there, done that for a long period of time, depending on the price. It'd be just dependent on how much he wants, how much he's available for, the risk factor in regards to that. So, yeah.
13 13 55 0467 736 736. We'll try and get Glenn back on from Eden's Landing. Corey, one of the glaring things, and I guess this happens with teams that are under pressure. Reece Walsh giving Corey Oates a spray for putting down a short ball. Actually, it was something that Adam Reynolds was asked about in the post-match media conference. This is the skipper about his fullback.
Part of learning. He's still a young kid. He's still growing into his role. He's a competitor. He tries hard. He's going to get errors in his game, but we believe in Reece. Those things happen. Like I said, he's still learning.
Yeah, he is. He's still learning, Reece. And I mean, would I be am I worried about the way that it's unfolded? I've seen players and been part of teams where players have, you've given each other a spray, but you've held them accountable for that. Like, it's not personal. It's like, find your role, execute your role, and it should go both ways. The reason it's so much highlighted these days is because you've got a 21-year-old in Reece Walsh telling a 30-year-old 200 gamer, been there for over a decade, in Corey Oates that.
Do you do it so publicly on the field?
That's where you sort of go back to what Adam Reynolds said. He's 21 years old and he's still learning. He is. And, I guess to dig deeper on that, the senior playing group should have that guy at a point where that doesn't ever happen. Like, if I was 21 years old coming through and I gave Shane Webke lip, for example, like that.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. It's, yeah.
Let's try take 2. Glenn, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are we?
Oh, mate, flying. What about you? One, are you a Coldplay fan? 2, how do you fix the Broncos?
No, that's why I didn't. I did hang up. No, just kidding. But I do agree with Corey. That was terrible. Yeah.
Well done.
So,
what do you got to say, Glenn, on the Broncos, mate?
Well, I'm a Titans fan, so I was really happy. But I just like to see, and Corey, I reckon bring someone back from the old school, like maybe a Brad Thorne or a Tony Carroll, and like you would have seen firsthand what they train like and what those blokes played like. For the fan watching on TV, there was nothing better than Tony Carroll cutting up midfield or absolutely snapping someone in half. And I seem to think it comes down to a bit of mongrel, like. Get a bit of mongrel back in them. And, having a 21-year-old tell a 200 gamer what to do, that's nothing. You take it with a grain of salt. You move on. You take, out in the everyday world, you take it with as advice.
Yeah.
And you move on with it.
Yeah. Glenn, what do you do for a job?
Me, I'm a truck driver.
Truck driver. So if you had an 18-year-old truck driver come on and tell you how to back a trailer, how would you take that?
Well... Yeah, I get your point there.
Yeah, okay. So
if he could, but if he could show me he could do it.
Yeah, but he can do it. He's a truck driver too. He can do it. You get what I'm saying, though, right? You wouldn't take that real well. Nor would the optics look real well to your colleagues if you got this 18-year-old guy telling you how to back a trailer and all the other boys are standing around watching going, oh, what about this kid? I understand what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying.
Hang on, because you're talking about accountability. Reece Walsh is trying to keep his teammates accountable.
I agree.
And it shows, you know what, to me, it actually shows passion.
Yeah,
it shows that he does care.
And obviously playing rugby league is completely different to backing trailers. I get that, and I agree. But what's happening at training? Is Reece coming up with this stuff at training on a regular basis? I don't know. Are we putting too much emphasis or thought in and around what we saw Reece? Because I don't dislike it. But if it happens at training and everyone's been held accountable, which you would assume is not happening based on the results, that's, I suppose, where the problem was.
Glenn, thank you for the input and keeping the conversation going. 1313 55 0467 736 736. Worst song in history, Ben.
Yeah, it's dreadful.
Get Corey Parker back to the Broncos. Get back Corey Parker to the Broncos. Here we go. Hey, Paul's at Forest Lake. Paul, g'day.
Hey, how you going?
Good, buddy. Welcome to the show. What do you got on your mind?
Hey, look, I'm not a Broncos supporter. I'm a Parramatta tragic.
Yep.
But I've lived in Queensland. I reckon the Broncos' standards have dropped. Now, would Wayne Bennett or Craig Bellamy or some of the good coaches, managers across the world, Alex Ferguson, Pep Guardiola, let somebody walk onto the field to warm up without a shirt on?
Yeah. Yeah, look,
I just think the standards have dropped.
Yeah, look, listen, In the big scheme of things, it's very minor, isn't it? But when you look at it collectively, and it's just to be accepted.
All the little.
It's correct. All the little
Sorry.
things, as you just touched on, Paul, all add up. And if that's being allowed and that's being accepted, well, what else is being accepted? That's what you got to ask, right? Like if a player's just sort of waltzing around, like I remember, and again, the game has completely changed, and I understand that. But if you wore the wrong short, now it's just free flow. You just wear whatever. It's like what do they call it? The drip session, all this stuff, all this. And the game's changed. The game has completely changed.
What?
But he makes a really good point.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you'd see a James Tedesco walk out onto the field with his shirt off.
No.
And again,
hang on. I also would imagine that those training shirts that you warm up in with your name and your number on the back, I'm sure there's sponsors on there as well. So I would have thought there'd be just.
But he
just
makes
straight up
he makes a great point, Paul, because yes, it is a very minor thing. It's a very minor thing, but if that's being allowed and let go, what else? What else?
13 55 0467 736 736 9:43. If you're stuck in traffic, we know there's issues around the roads today. Keep it locked here to SENQ. We are talking rugby league back to back. We'll touch on the Olympics as well. We'll get into what Queensland teams are going to make the 8. We know the Broncos aren't. Are the Dolphins still a chance? What about the Titans? Is it time to remember the Titans? Corey Parker, the Monday Means Test here until 10 o'clock.